The great hall was full of aliens, thousands of them. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had wings. Some floated in tanks of strange liquid. They filled every seat in the grand chamber of the Galactic Confederacy. And they were all here for one reason. They were here to judge Earth. Ambassador Una stood alone in the center of the room. She was a small woman with black hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple dark suit. Around her, the alien representatives whispered and pointed. Some of them had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories, terrible stories. The High Arbiter was a tall insect creature named Malith. He stood at the highest platform and looked down at Una with his many eyes. His voice echoed through the chamber like metal scraping against stone. "We are gathered here to pass judgment on the species known as humanity," Malith announced. "They have broken our laws. They have stolen our technology. They have spread across space like a disease." Una did not react. She simply stood there, hands folded in front of her. Malith continued reading from a long list. "The humans have violated 17 trade agreements. They copied protected engine designs. They settled on 3 planets that belonged to other species. And when we sent ships to stop them, they destroyed those ships." The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Clicks and growls and high-pitched screams filled the air. The aliens were furious, but Una remained still. One of the alien representatives stood up. He was a Kellen, a tall gray creature with 4 arms. "They are dangerous," he said. "My people tried to negotiate with them. They smiled at us and agreed to everything. Then they built weapons we had never seen before. Weapons that broke through our shields like paper." Another alien spoke. This one was a Malari, a small furry being with large black eyes. "They learned too fast. We gave them basic star maps, and within 10 years, they had explored more space than we had in 1,000 years. They do not belong among us." More voices joined in. Every species had a complaint. The humans were too aggressive, too curious, too adaptable. They did not follow the rules. They did not know their place. Una listened to all of it. Her face showed nothing. Finally, Malith raised one of his many arms, and the chamber fell silent. "The vote has been taken," he said. "By a count of 3,847 to 12, the Galactic Confederacy has decided. Earth is banned. All trade with humans will stop. All diplomatic ties are cut. Human ships will not be allowed in Confederate space. They will be trapped in their own solar system forever." The chamber exploded with cheers. Aliens celebrated. They had one. They had removed the threat. Malith looked down at Una. "Do you have anything to say, human?" For a long moment, Una said nothing. Then she took a slow breath and looked up at the thousands of aliens watching her. "Yes," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I have something to say." The chamber went silent again. Every eye and sensor was focused on her. "You think you are punishing us," Una said. "You think that by cutting us off, you will make us weak. You think we will come crawling back to you, begging for help." She paused and looked around the room. "You're wrong." A murmur went through the crowd. "For 50 years we have watched you," Una continued. "We have learned your technology. We have studied your politics. We have seen how you treat species you consider beneath you. And we have prepared." Malice's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Prepared? You cannot survive without us. You need our fuel, our medicine, our hyperspace lanes." Una smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. "We needed those things once," she said. "We do not need them anymore." The chamber went completely quiet. Even the floating creatures stopped moving. "Earth accepts your ban," Una said. "We withdraw from your confederacy. We will leave your space and never return. You will not see our ships. You will not hear our voices. We will be gone." She bowed once, a small and polite gesture. "Thank you for showing us who you really are." And she turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. One of the 12 representatives who had voted against the ban stood up. It was Kyo, a thin blue alien with kind eyes. "Wait," she called out. Ambassador, please. Not all of us wanted this. Some of us believe in peace. Yuna stopped at the door. She looked back at Kyo. I know, Yuna said softly. And when the time comes, we will remember who our friends were. Then she walked out. The door closed behind her. For a long moment, no one spoke. The celebration had died. The aliens looked at each other with uncertain expressions. They had expected the human to beg, to threaten, to cry. Instead, she had smiled and walked away. Malith broke the silence. It does not matter, he declared. They are just one species. They cannot survive alone. In a year they will be forgotten. The other aliens nodded and agreed. Yes, the humans were nothing. They would fade away. But Kyo remained standing. She watched the door where Yuna had disappeared, and she felt something cold in her chest. Something like fear. She had seen that smile before. She had seen it on the faces of humans during negotiations. It was the smile they made when they knew they had already won. Outside the chamber, Yuna walked to her ship. Her crew was waiting for her. A young officer named Jisoo met her at the ramp. How did it go? Jisoo asked. Yuna looked up at the stars. It went exactly as we planned, she said. Send the message to Earth. Tell them to begin. Jisoo nodded and ran to the communication console. As the ship lifted off from station terminus, Yuna sat in her chair and watched the alien station grow smaller and smaller. She thought about all the years of preparation, all the secret projects, all the waiting. The galaxy had just made its biggest mistake, and humanity was ready. 6 months passed after the ban, and the galaxy waited. The aliens expected Earth to fall apart. They expected riots in the streets. They expected desperate messages asking for help. They expected human ships to arrive at Confederate borders, begging to be let back in. None of that happened. Instead, there was only silence. On Earth, the world had changed. Not in the way the aliens expected. There was no panic. No collapse. In fact, the opposite had happened. For the first time in 50 years, humanity was truly united. Admiral Taiwu stood before the united human council in the Great Assembly Hall in Seoul. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. He had spent 30 years in space, commanding human ships, fighting battles the Confederacy never knew about. They think we are weak, Taiwu said to the gathered leaders. They think we cannot survive without them. Today we show the truth. He pressed a button, and a massive screen lit up behind him. It showed a project that had been hidden for decades. The project had a name, Sunbreak. For 50 years, our scientists have worked in secret, Taiwu explained. Every piece of alien technology they gave us, we copied. Then we made it better. Every resource they controlled, we found alternatives. Every system they owned, we built our own version. The screen showed images of massive factories hidden deep underground, ships being built in secret shipyards on the dark side of the moon, research stations floating in the clouds of Jupiter. Dr. Hannah stepped forward. She was a small woman with glasses and messy hair. She had spent her entire life working on Sunbreak. She had given up everything for this moment. The Confederacy gave us hyperspace drives that only worked on their lanes, Hannah said. We built our own drives. Ours are faster. They do not need their lanes. We can go anywhere. She changed the image on the screen. It showed a glowing blue reactor. They sold us fuel at high prices. We developed cold fusion. Our energy is free and unlimited. At another image. This one showed massive ships filled with plants and animals. They said we could only live on planets they approved. We built generation ships. We built terraforming machines. We can make any rock into a home. The council members looked at each other in amazement. Some of them had known about Sunbreak. Most had not. The secret had been kept for 50 years, passed down from leader to leader, waiting for this day. Taiwu spoke again. The Confederacy thought they were punishing us. They were setting us free. The vote was quick. Every single council member agreed. Earth would not just survive. Earth would grow. Earth would explore. And Earth would do it alone, without asking permission from anyone. Within weeks, the first ships launched. They did not use Confederate hyperspace lanes. They did not follow Confederate rules. They flew into the unknown. Into regions of space the aliens had ignored for thousands of years. The first colony was built on a small moon orbiting a gas giant in an empty system. The Confederacy had marked this moon as worthless. Too cold. Too far. No valuable resources. The humans did not care. A young engineer named Doan led the first team. He was 26 years old, born on a space station, raised among the stars. When his boots touched the frozen ground of the moon, he felt tears in his eyes. "This is ours," he said to his team. "No one gave it to us. No one allowed it. We took it ourselves." They built the colony in 3 months. They dug into the ice and found water. They set up fusion reactors for heat. They grew food in underground farms. By the time 6 months had passed, 2,000 people called that frozen moon home, and that was just the beginning. More ships launched. More colonies were built. Humans spread across the empty spaces of the galaxy like seeds carried by the wind. They found worlds the Confederacy had never mapped. They discovered resources the aliens had never noticed. On one planet, they found a metal that was harder than anything known to science. On another, they found ancient ruins of a civilization that had died 1,000,000 years before. On a third, they found life. Strange creatures that lived in underground oceans, completely unknown to the Confederacy. Each discovery was shared among all human colonies. Each victory belonged to everyone. Back on Earth, Una watched the reports come in. She was no longer ambassador to a Confederacy that had rejected her people. Now she was simply a citizen like everyone else. She sat in a small cafe in Busan, drinking tea and reading her tablet. The news showed images of the new colonies. Happy faces. Growing cities. Ships flying to places no human had ever seen. Her assistant, a young man named Siajin, sat across from her. "The Confederacy still has not contacted us," Siajin said. "They must know what we are doing. Their sensors can see our ships." Una nodded. "They know, but they do not understand. They think we are struggling. They think these colonies will fail." "Will they?" Siajin asked. Una smiled and shook her head. "Humans have never needed perfect conditions to survive. We crossed frozen lands. We crossed burning deserts. We crossed oceans in tiny wooden boats. The galaxy is just another ocean." On Station Terminus, far away in Confederate space, the aliens were beginning to worry. They had expected silence to mean defeat. Instead, silence meant something else. It meant that Earth no longer cared about them. Spy drones sent back images of human colonies growing faster than anyone thought possible. Confederate scientists studied the reports and could not explain it. How were the humans doing this? How were they building so fast? How were they surviving without Confederate support? High Arbiter Maleth dismissed the concerns. "They are building on worthless rocks," he said. "Let them play in the dirt. It means nothing." But some of the aliens were not so sure. Some of them remembered the smile on Una's face. Some of them began to wonder if the Confederacy had made a terrible mistake. A year passed. Then 2. And still, Earth said nothing. They did not threaten. They did not demand. They did not ask. They simply kept building, and the silence was louder than any weapon. The first sign of trouble came from the outer rim. A Velen trading convoy was flying through empty space when their sensors picked up something strange. There was a signal coming from a moon that should have been dead. The moon was small and cold, covered in ice, far from any sun. The Confederacy had mapped it centuries ago, and marked it as useless. But now there were lights on that moon, buildings, ships coming and going, a city where there should have been nothing. The Velen captain sent a drone to investigate. What he saw made his blood run cold. It was a human colony. Not a small camp or a temporary base. A real city with thousands of people, factories producing goods, ships being loaded with cargo. They had built all of this in less than 2 years. The captain reported what he found to the Confederacy. Within days, the news had spread to every corner of the galaxy. The humans were not struggling. They were thriving. More reports came in. Human colonies had appeared on dozens of worlds. They had built space stations and systems the Confederacy had never explored. They were mining asteroids, harvesting gas from giant planets, even farming on moons that should have been too hostile for life. The Confederate Council held an emergency meeting. High Arbiter Maleth stood at his platform and tried to calm the crowd. "This changes nothing," he insisted. "They are building on scraps. They have no access to our resources, our technology, our trade routes. They will hit a wall soon." But not everyone believed him. A Malari representative stood up. She was shaking with fear. "You do not understand," she said. "We have been trading with them." The chamber went silent. "Trading with them?" Maleth repeated, his voice dangerous. "That is forbidden." The Malari lowered her head. "We had no choice. Our people were dying. There was a disease spreading through our colonies. Confederate medicine could not stop it. But the humans, they had a cure. They gave it to us for almost nothing." Another representative stood. This one was Kellen, one of the tall gray aliens with 4 arms. "We have also traded with Earth," he admitted. "Their ships are faster than ours. Their food tastes better. Their prices are fair. We could not compete with them, so we joined them." More voices spoke up. One by one, species confessed. They had been secretly buying human goods. Human medicine, human technology, human art and music. The ban had been meaningless because too many species had simply ignored it. Maleth's mandibles clicked in fury. "You have betrayed the Confederacy." "The Confederacy betrayed itself," shouted a small alien from the back of the chamber. "You banned the humans because you were scared of them. But fear is not a strategy. Fear is a weakness." The chamber erupted into chaos. Species that had supported the ban now demanded it be lifted. Others called for military action against Earth. Some wanted to punish the traitors. Others wanted to join them, for the first time in 10,000 years. The Galactic Confederacy was falling apart, far from the chaos. On a quiet human colony, a woman named Yunji watched the news with a smile. She was the governor of New Daegu, one of the largest human settlements outside the solar system. She had been a farmer before the ban, growing rice in fields that her family had owned for generations. Now she led 50,000 people on a world that had no name before humans arrived. Her assistant, a young man named Hunwoo, brought her a cup of tea. "The Confederacy is panicking," Hunwoo said. "Some of them want to attack us." Yunji sipped her tea. "Let them try." "You are not worried?" Yunji shook her head. "When I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She said that our ancestors once lived in a small village surrounded by powerful kingdoms. Those kingdoms fought and schemed and made grand plans. Our ancestors did none of that. They simply worked hard, helped their neighbors, and waited. One by one, the kingdoms fell. The village remained." She looked out the window at the city she had helped build. Children were playing in the streets. Ships were landing at the spaceport. Life was good. "We are the village now," Yunji said. "The Confederacy is the kingdom. Let them fight. We will keep building." Back at Station Terminus, the emergency sessions continued for weeks. No one could agree on anything. The species that had traded with humans refused to stop. The species that wanted war could not agree on how to fight. The species in the middle simply wanted the problem to go away. Q, the blue alien who had voted against the ban, finally stood to speak. "I tried to warn you," she said quietly. 2 years ago, I told you this was a mistake. You did not listen. You thought humans were weak because they were young. You thought you could control them." She looked around at the angry faces. "You were wrong. Humans are not weak. They are patient. They do not fight wars they cannot win. They build instead. They grow, they adapt, and now they have built something better than anything we have." Maleth glared at her. "What are you suggesting?" "That we surrender." "I am suggesting that we look at the truth," Kyo replied. "The truth is that our Confederacy is dying. Not because of humans, because of us. We are too slow, too proud, too afraid of change. The humans showed us our weakness, and instead of learning from them, we pushed them away." The chamber was silent. Now, Kyo continued, we must decide. Do we keep pretending we are strong? Or do we admit that the galaxy has changed and change with it? No one answered, but somewhere in the crowd, species began to whisper to each other. Deals were made. Plans were formed. One by one, more aliens began to reach out to Earth. The ban was not officially lifted, but it no longer mattered. The Confederacy had already lost. They just did not know it yet. The ship was small and old. It was not a warship or a diplomatic cruiser. It was just a freighter, the kind used to carry cargo between planets. Its hull was scratched and dented from years of hard work. Its name, painted in faded white letters on the side, was the Quiet Step. The ship arrived at station terminus without warning. No announcement, no escort. It simply appeared at the docking bay and requested permission to land. The station guards did not know what to do. Human ships were banned from Confederate space. But this ship was not threatening anyone. It was not even armed. It was just sitting there, waiting politely. After 3 hours of confused discussions, they finally let it dock. The captain walked down the ramp alone. His name was Minho, and he did not look like a diplomat. He was a middle-aged man with rough hands and tired eyes. He wore simple clothes, the kind a worker might wear. He carried no weapons and brought no guards. He looked around at the aliens staring at him and nodded politely. Hello, he said. I am here to talk. Station commander was furious. You cannot be here. Humans are banned. Minho shrugged. I know. I came anyway. If you want to arrest me, you can. But I think you should hear what I have to say first. Word spread quickly. A human had come to station terminus. Not an ambassador or a general. Just a freighter captain. The aliens did not understand it. What was he doing here? What did he want? The High Council refused to meet with him. Malith called it an insult. But the 12 species who had voted against the ban were curious. They agreed to meet with Minho in a small room far from the Grand Chamber. KYO was there. So were representatives from 11 other species. They sat around a simple table and watched as Minho entered. He sat down across from them and placed a small data chip on the table. Thank you for seeing me, he said. I will not waste your time with speeches. I am not good at speeches. I am a spacer. I fly cargo. I've spent my whole life among the stars. The aliens waited. Earth has no interest in revenge, Minho continued. We do not want to destroy the Confederacy. We do not want your resources or your planets. We have our own now. He tapped the data chip. This is an invitation. Earth is forming something new. We call it the Open Accord. Q leaned forward. What is the Open Accord? Minho smiled. It was a simple, honest smile. It is not a government. We have enough governments already. It is not a confederacy. We have seen how those work. He paused, looking for the right words. The Open Accord is a promise. A promise that we will trade fairly. A promise that we will help each other when there is trouble. A promise that no one will be banned or punished for being different. One of the aliens, a small creature with many eyes, spoke up. And what do you want in return? Nothing, Minho said. You join if you want. You leave if you want. There are no rules except 3. Do not cheat. Do not steal. Do not attack your partners. Everything else is up to you. Aliens looked at each other. They had never heard anything like this. The Confederacy had thousands of rules, thousands of laws, thousands of ways to control its members. This human was offering something completely different. Why should we trust you? Asked a tall alien with silver skin. Your species is young. You have only been in space for a short time. How do we know you will keep your promises? Minho nodded. It was a fair question. You're right, he said. We are young. We have made mistakes. But we have also learned. We learned that empires fall. We learned that control creates enemies. We learned that the best partnerships are built on trust, not fear. He pointed at the data chip. We're not asking you to trust us blindly. We are asking you to take a chance. Come to our space. See what we have built. Meet our people. Then decide. Q picked up the data chip and looked at it. If the Confederacy tries to stop us? She asked. Minho's smile faded. For a moment, something cold appeared in his eyes. Something that reminded the aliens why they had feared humans in the first place. Then they will learn what we learned, Minho said quietly. You cannot stop people who have nothing to lose. And you definitely cannot stop people who have already won. The room was silent. Minho stood up and nodded to the group. I have said what I came to say. I will be at my ship for 3 days. If anyone wants to talk, they know where to find me. He walked out without looking back. The 12 representatives sat in silence for a long time. Then, one by one, they began to discuss what they had heard. Within a day, Kyo had sent a secret message to Earth. She wanted to learn more about the Open Accord. Within a week, she was on a ship heading to human space. What she saw changed her forever. She visited New Daegu, where humans and aliens already worked side by side. She saw factories where Malari engineers helped build human ships. She saw hospitals where Kellen doctors learned human medicine. She saw schools where children of all species played together. She met Governor Yoonji, who welcomed her with tea and kind words. She met Dr. Hannah, who showed her the wonders of human science. She met Admiral Tai Wu, who spoke of peace instead of war, and she understood. The Confederacy had spent 10,000 years building walls. Humans had spent 3 years building bridges. Kyo returned to Station Terminus and spoke to her people. Then, she spoke to others. Then others spoke to others. Within a month, 37 species had secretly joined the Open Accord. Within 6 months, the number had grown to over 100. Minho never attended another meeting. He returned to his freighter and continued his cargo runs. Sometimes he carried food. Sometimes he carried medicine. Sometimes he carried hope. He was just a spacer, doing his job, but he had changed the galaxy forever. 5 years had passed since the day Earth was banned from the Galactic Confederacy. 5 years since Yuna had walked out of the Grand Chamber with a smile on her face. 5 years since humanity had begun building something new. The Confederacy voted to dissolve on a quiet Tuesday morning. There was no war. No great battle. No dramatic last stand. The Confederacy simply stopped existing because no one believed in it anymore. Species after species had left to join the Open Accord. First in secret, then openly. The trade routes that had once connected Confederate worlds now sat empty. The laws that had controlled 1,000 civilizations were ignored. The great stations and fleets that had enforced Confederate rule became useless. High Arbiter Malith gave one final speech before the empty Grand Chamber. His voice echoed against walls that had once held thousands of representatives. Now only a handful remained. We were the greatest civilization in history, Malith said. His voice was tired, old, defeated. We brought order to chaos. We created peace among the stars. And we lost it all because of one small species from one small planet. He looked at the empty seats. I do not understand how this happened. I do not understand what we did wrong. Far away on Earth, no one was listening to Malith's speech. They were too busy celebrating. The Unity Tower stood tall in the center of Seoul. It was a beautiful building made of glass and steel and light. It had been built in just 2 years, a symbol of everything humanity had achieved. Today, it was filled with people from 200 worlds. Yuna stood at the great window, looking out at the crowd below. She was older now. Her black hair had threads of gray. But her eyes were still sharp, still calm, still filled with that quiet confidence that had carried her through the hardest times. She was no longer an ambassador to a confederacy that had rejected her. Now she was Secretary General of the Open Accord. It was not a title she had wanted, but her people had asked, and she could not say no. A soft knock came at her door. Kyo entered, her blue skin shimmering in the light. It is time for your speech, Kyo said. Yuna nodded. Are they ready? Kyo smiled. They have been ready for 5 years. Together, they walked to the great hall at the top of Unity Tower. The room was filled with representatives from every species in the Open Accord. Humans sat beside Malari. Kellen stood next to creatures from worlds that had no names a decade ago. They were all equal. They were all partners. In the front row, Yuna saw familiar faces. Admiral Tai Wu, his gray hair now completely white, sat with his hands folded in his lap. He had retired from the military 2 years ago, saying that there was no need for warriors in a time of peace. Beside him sat Dr. Hannah, still wearing her messy hair and thick glasses, still dreaming of new inventions that would change the universe. Captain Minho was there too. Sitting in the back corner, trying not to be noticed. He was still flying his freighter, still carrying cargo across the stars. He had refused every medal and every title that people had tried to give him. "I am just a spacer," he always said. "I do not need fancy things." And Governor Yunji had come all the way from New Daegu. She was old now. Her face lined with wrinkles, but her eyes were bright with joy. She had seen her colony grow from 50,000 to 5 million. She had watched humans and aliens build a future together on a world that the Confederacy had called worthless. Yuna stepped up to the podium. The room fell silent. 5 years ago, she began, the Galactic Confederacy voted to ban Earth from the stars. They said we were dangerous. They said we were a threat. They said we did not know our place. She paused and looked around the room. They were right about one thing. We did not know our place. Because our place was not at the bottom of their hierarchy. Our place was not begging for scraps at their table. Our place was here. Building something better. Soft applause rippled through the crowd. But this is not about humanity, Yuna continued. This is about all of us. The Open Accord is not a human empire. We do not want subjects. We do not want servants. We want partners. She gestured to the aliens in the room. You came to us when your own people told you not to. You trusted us when trust was dangerous. You helped us build this new galaxy. Without you, we would be alone. With you, we are family. The applause grew louder. The Confederacy fell because it was built on fear, Yuna said. Fear of change. Fear of difference. Fear of anyone who did not follow their rules. The Open Accord is built on something stronger. It is built on hope. Hope that we can be better than we were. Hope that we can build a future where everyone has a place. She took a deep breath. I do not know what challenges we will face tomorrow. I do not know what enemies or disasters or problems await us, but I know that we will face them together. Because that is what we do. That is who we are. She raised her hand toward the crowd. To the new galaxy. 200 species rose to their feet. Humans and aliens cheered together, their voices mixing into a sound that had never been heard before in the history of the universe. It was the sound of true unity. Not forced. Not controlled. Freely chosen, Minho slipped out during the celebration. He walked through the streets of Seoul, past families and friends and strangers, past humans and aliens, past the old and the young. He made his way to the spaceport where his freighter was waiting. Jisoo was there, checking the cargo. She had joined his crew 3 years ago, and she was like a daughter to him now. You are not staying for the party? Jisoo asked. Minho shook his head. I do not like parties. Too many people, Jisoo laughed. You changed the galaxy, and you do not even want to celebrate. Minho climbed the ramp to his ship. I did not change anything. I just carried cargo. That is all I have ever done. He looked back at the Unity Tower, glowing in the distance. Besides, he said quietly, the galaxy does not need heroes anymore. It just needs people who show up and do the work. The quiet step lifted off from Earth and climbed toward the stars. Below, the celebration continued. Above, a whole universe waited. Humanity had been banned from the galaxy. Humanity had smiled and walked away, and now, the galaxy had followed them home. The end was just another beginning.